We have another guest from outside of Switzerland. It's Manu Claeys, coming from Antwerp. Manu Claeys is an author, an activist, and has been involved in planning since many years in different roles, and has published also several books which have received prizes, also related to activism and to planning issues. And it will relate to a very interesting project or planning. Project is almost too small. It's really a big deal in Antwerp. The covering of the ring road, which took more than 2 decades and is still going on. And it's just another scale, but that's somewhat also a different scale, big and small at the same time. Thank you, Manu.
Thank you for inviting me. I'll do this talk in English. As you know, Belgium is like Switzerland. We have many different parts and many different languages. Antwerp is situated in the north of the country, and we speak Dutch in that area. Southern part we speak, or they speak French, but we learn French at school, so all of us are supposed to speak French as well. And there's a German minority of 100,000 people, so we also get German at school. That's why I can understand the German, but I don't have a fluency in German. I'll take you through some presentation, which is coming. I'll give, like the Italian talk, I'll give a lot of visuals. You'll see a lot of things passing. It's more to inspire you than to note down all kinds of particular details, because it's a huge story. We started in 1999. We have been discussing this thing for 2 decades. There it is. I'm a chairman of a citizen movement in Antwerp called Straten-Generaal. There's many citizen movements, so there will be the perspective of the activist as well in this talk, and you will see some evolution. I started in 1999. For the people who are already active at that time, you may remember the Battle of Seattle. That was an era when people came into the street, not only there, but also in Genoa, in Prague, in many cities, people reclaiming the public debate, let's say. In that same year, Straten-Generaal was founded. I was not involved. There were other people who were founding that. And they had a very clever four words to work about: weerwerk, denkwerk, netwerk, veldwerk. Translated, it is resistance. That's part of activism. You have to study, you have to develop a network, and you have to do some field work. And that all will come back in the talk. 2005, the Flemish government decided that the ring road around Antwerp, which is not a ring road, it's not a full circle, that had to be closed. It had to be made into a full circle. And on the black areas, you see what was going to be the impact of that closing the ring road. So it's a huge impact. And we started working around it from Straten-Generaal. We organized resistance, we filed complaint, and we said this is 1960s approach, 1970s approach. This is not for the new era. The thing, what they wanted to build is, and it was really top down, there was one day that the maquette was shown to the population, and the Flemish government said, this is gonna be the project. That's 15 years ago. The existing ring road was going to be connected with the new ring road with 18 lanes, 18 highway lanes. There's no place in Belgium where we have this construction. You have to go to Los Angeles or to other places, I guess, to see that. So, of course, it was not difficult to organize resistance. A second group started to, let's say, complete us. They focused on air quality. They were called ademloos, which is breathless. This is the logo of the city, this A, the A of Antwerp. It's with a red background normally, and they reinvented this logo. So it's almost the suffocating A is a very strong logo, and the person who founded this citizen movement came from marketing, and he was very clever in that. So the second citizen movement joined Straten-Generaal with this focus. In 2009, we went to a referendum. So in Belgium, there's a right for a referendum, but it's different from Switzerland. You have to collect a lot of signatures in order to implement it, and there's lots of strictures. So we had to collect 49,000 signatures. We collected like 70,000, which is a very good number in a diverse city like Antwerp. It's difficult to collect signatures. So we had the referendum. We made all kinds of, let's say, propaganda. We tried to show to the people in Antwerp how wide these 18 lanes were going to be. And it was exactly the height of the Antwerp Cathedral. So the whole of Antwerp knew, okay, this is not what we want. We went to the referendum and we won. So the flyover was voted away. But then what next? We were in 2009. This is a little victory party of the steering committee of Staten-Generaal with the flyover that was voted away. Then resistance, but also study. We put forward a lot of alternatives. There was a lot of study. There were experts being involved. We went to other countries, to other cities. We went to Madrid, for example, to let us inspire about capping ring roads, for example. This is our visit. We took the national television with us because at that time, the Flemish government said, no, tunnels, that's impossible. So we just took the national television to Madrid to show that it was already there in a city context. So this discussion was closed. We also networked. So Staten-Generaal and Ademloos were the main nucleus, let's say. But around us in the city, there were already a lot of NGOs, citizen collectives, action committees, neighborhood groups who were very much involved around the themes that we were putting forward. Of course, mobility, so people who are from the bicycle organizations, health, so people from the Medicines for the People were involved, cultural groups. There was even a group called Zermatt, as you see on the left, the name, a very popular square in Borgerhout district. So around us, we collected all the groups in Antwerp that had affinity with the debate, but were not as much involved in that discussion. And of course, the numbers were swelling in that sense. Lots of meetings. We also went into the streets. So one day we had the idea to start from 7 places in Antwerp to have big demonstrations and then gather in one big new park that was installed. We also have information evenings, 3 a year, let's say. We got this venue for free. We still get it for free every time we need it, because the flyover that was voted away was going across a very popular restaurant. And the restaurant owner of that restaurant also owns this hall. So he says, for eternity, you can use our hall every time you need it. This is from 10 years ago, let's say, information session by the government on your left, and then information session by us on the right. So, of course, politicians see that, journalists see that, and this helps the debate, let's say. Then after 9 years, a third player came. This third player joined the two previous groups. It's called Ringland. And Ringland went back to an idea that was already in the discussion, but they, let's say, they blew it up. They made it much, much more ambitious. So ambitious that nobody could have thought about how ambitious it could be until it was put forward. This idea was, let's put a cap on the ring road. The first idea was in 2004, and it was only a small part, like two kilometers. But it was bottom up. It came from the local neighborhood in Borgerhout. And the politicians said, okay, that's a very good idea. But that was the end of the discussion. So, and then there were information sessions. There were ring park festivities being organized. This is an impression of 17 years ago, a small version, just to show to the people that around the existing ring road, there was already a lot of green. The ring road was designed in the 1960s by an American bureau, and they designed it in the American way. So with lots of roundabouts and spaghetti junctions, and in between it was green, but nobody could access that green. So we said, we already have the green. Now we have to get rid of these spaghetti junctions. more and more propositions came. They became more ambitious. In 2010, it was already 6 kilometers. Then the Autor School of Architecture sent students to Antwerp to do some master thesis about it, and it was the whole ring road. So in 2014, that dream was revisited. Let's put a cap on the ring road in Antwerp. And this was one of the images that was put forward by Ringland. You see the river Schelde, you see the Antwerp Cathedral, you see the inner city with the 19th century belt, and then outside it's more 19th century belt, 20th century belt. There's about 250,000 people living inside the ring road. There's 250,000 people along the ring road. That's the city of Antwerp itself. And then in the urban region, it's 1.2 million people being affected by this thing. So in the spring of 2014, that was 1 month before the Flemish elections, every day there was something organized. And one of the ideas was we're going to put a flag next to the existing ring road. And the idea was a local group or a group, an association should come and put the flag. The first day we had to search for a school that was willing to do it. The 30th day there was a long list of associations that still wanted to plant the flag. So that was very visible action. Then we organized what we called stappen om te overkappen. So walk to put a cap, let's say, marching for the cap. That was these 7 places in Antwerp where we started. See, 10,000 people showed up. That had a huge impact because we saw at the same time the Flemish television was making a documentary, it was pre-election, about the mayor and his daily actions before election. And you could see the impact they have filmed that evening. They filmed in the local city hall, and you could see the visible impact of what he saw here. And he said, we're going to have to do something about that. The next day, we showed the plans of the cap of the ring, and we had to organize this 2 times. So 1,300 people showed up, and the next day we had to do it again. So that had a huge impact. We also did smaller things like making photo books of certain places that were going to disappear because of this highway put forward by the government. So one of the places is a green area between the port and the city center. You probably know that we have a huge port in Antwerp. It's the second one. Rotterdam and then Antwerp is huge. And in between, in the area between the port and the city, there's like a no man's land. It's not claimed by the port and it's not claimed by the city. And in that no man's land, there's a green patch, and it's called Noordkasteel. And a lot of older people in the city learned to swim there. So we could capture their sentimentality about this place, and the new generation went there because it was a no man's land. You could do illegal things there, like going to swim there, or smoking some weed, or doing barbecues that were not allowed there. Nobody really cared. So, and the local newspaper made an 8-pager, a midsection in the weekend edition about this thing, about this photo book. So that was another way of reaching people. In September 2015, we had a second Ring Park Fest. Already many more people were coming. And then in 2015, we also went to court. So we said, we've had the discussion now for 10 years, ça suffit. We say, this has to end. Everybody is tired and we can go on for a couple of decades, but nobody wants this and everybody wants a solution. So we went to, you see, the Conseil d'État, and we had 15 claims. And then we also started gathering signatures for a second referendum. And the first time we had to collect 9 months before we had these 70,000. These 70,000 we had in 1 week, the second time around. It was very fast. And then in December 2015, the government said, okay, we rest our case. We were very glad. We had put forward the idea that as there was a lot of fight, a lot of conflict, a lot of action, a lot of psychological, let's say, wounds almost in all sides, we put forward the idea that we needed a superintendent to bring everybody together again. We call it the intendant. And on the left you see Alexander Doge. He's a Flemish professor at MIT about, he's an architect about urban fabrics. He has a bureau in New York. He has also one in Brussels. And he was brought to Antwerp to be the superintendent. And on the right, you see the Minister of Mobility, Flemish level, because the highway is Flemish level. So that was an important signal. And then in 2016, 2017, the citizen movements, the 3 citizens movements I have mentioned, joined this process, joined the process that we had put forward, let's say. So on the left, we asked to join the process. We went to the information session and we asked the people, is that okay that we will do it? And then we went to negotiations, let's say, like almost trade unions talking with the government about a 5-pager, what are we going to do? And then in March 2017, we signed what we call het Toekomstverbond, which is a covenant for the future. That was between the Flemish government, those 3 movements, and the City Council of Antwerp also. In the middle, you see the Minister-President of Flanders. So that I'll show you to show how important the government thought that day was. It was with a lot of pomp and circumstances and a lot of journalists. We also wanted it with a lot of pomp and circumstances so that the whole of Flanders would see it and they would witness that moment so that it would be more difficult for the government to withdraw. In that covenant, there's 4 pillars, but most of all, there's 2 shifts in the debate. From a highway infrastructure project, we made it into a mobility project, and then we made it into a sustainable city planning project. And also from activism, we made the move towards participation, what we always have asked for since the beginning in Straten-Generaal. And then the 4 pillars, I'll show you. There's the 4 pillars. There's the commitment for this sum, 1.25 billion euros for a first phase. And there's also the promise of co-creation. The first pillar is, okay, we'll close this local ring road, but we'll do it in a much softer way, in a 21st century way, because everybody realized it needs to be closed. There's only 1 tunnel that crosses the river, and the left side of the country, if it wants to go to the right side, they all need this tunnel. So at the ring road, every day we have 300,000 passages of cars. That's huge. It's because from Rotterdam to Le Havre, from England to Poland, from Hamburg to Paris, everybody has to take this ring road, which is not a ring road, it's a highway through the city. The second thing we decided is we need a trajectory through the port, so that trucks especially, but also cars that don't need to cross the city, that they have an alternative somehow through the port. The third shift is we need modal shift. So as we will build additional highways, we still need the modal shift in the city. And we need the modal shift not in the city, because that's an easy thing, as you have seen also, for example, in Milano. This will come, this modal shift in the city. The urban fabric, it comes in itself. Bikes and pedestrians reclaim the streets. But we said we need a modal shift in the region. So the 32 surrounding communities need to be involved, and we need a modal shift from 70-30 to 50-50. And then the fourth thing is we need to cap the road, the ring road. We started with a design competition. So 33 candidates applied to this competition. 6 teams were selected, and they entered a pool for 8 years. So the idea was, in order to be fast in all our movements, we didn't want to organize and organize and organize competitions to find design teams that were going to be involved. So we have this pool for 8 years, 6 design teams, and since then we organize mini competitions. Each time we need new designs. We also had these 18 first phase projects. You remember the 1.25 billion. 1 year after signing the covenant, 18 projects were selected that were the first phases. They were not the actual capping, but they were the preparation for the capping, like ring parks alongside or modal shift projects. The several projects we clustered in 7 ring parks. So the whole, you see the shape of the ring road, 7 ring parks. Also a bike bridge was implemented. There's no bridges across the River Schelde. It's historical reasons. The left bank is Flanders, the county of the Duchy of Flanders, historically. The right bank is Antwerp, Brabant, as it is called. And there were never bridges being built. And when we could have built bridges, the ships were too tall. So that's why we don't have bridges. There's a couple of tunnels, pedestrian tunnels, bike tunnels, but there's no bridges. So a bike bridge, and then also we started 4 studies for multimodal hubs, water, energy, and capping the Southern Ring Road. So those were breakthroughs, the allocation of this amount of money for the first projects. And then also there were new local elections. There was a new city council being elected, and they said, we're gonna adapt this ambitious project and we're gonna call it the Big Link. And the whole city council program for the next 5 years was called the Big Link. So it was very high on the local agenda. In November 2019, we presented these first 18 projects to the people of Antwerp that were not involved. I'm going to show you later on who was involved. And there was a stampede to see those projects. You see a lot of interest. And then we also got our first prize. In Prague, we got the Eurocities 2019 Cooperation Award. And this is the alderman, I don't know the German or the French word for it. It's the city councilman who has a mandate for mobility. So he went to get this thing. The Covenant for the Future is, I think, the most ambitious participation process experiment in Belgium. We first started with making all kinds of schemes. How should where's the place of the different stakeholders? How should they be connected with each other? So these were all schemes that were work in progress. Blue was a Flemish government, red was the city council government. On your left, you see government, werkgemeenschap, where people would be involved. Other architecture of how could we organize it. You see the 4 pillars again. And it was, as we were going on, we were inventing all kinds of layers where you could talk to each other. You see, project team, work sessions, workbenches, they are very important. Scrum sessions, that's work sessions with a pressure cooker. That means you have like 6 weeks to find a solution. Klankbord group, which is sounding board groups, steering committees, political steering committee. The steering committee is very important. It's what we call the highest escalation level. So the politicians who are elected, of course, they decide, but underneath that, there's this steering committee. The idea is that we find solutions for all problems on this level, because if we don't find a solution, it goes to the political level, and then they will decide. The political level says, we want solutions that have that people accept, that have let's say, a tolerance in the city. So in this steering committee, we have the 3 citizen movements. We have Flemish level, we have city level, and we have a minority blocking position. The 3 citizen movements can, if they agree on with each other, they can stop solutions, and then we have to work out new solutions. That's very important. This is the Flemish level with the Secretary General on the Flemish level who is involved. They are important. The city administration is involved. And then also a public construction company is involved, which is probably the strangest thing. There's a public construction company that has to build all these projects. And that's interesting. It's funded by the Flemish government. It's funded by levying toll in this tunnel underneath the Schelde River. They should engineer and design the Oosterweel link, so closing the ring. They will have to build the ring parks. They will build part of the modal shift constructions, like new tram lines, bike paths. They have to find contractors to build. And they also have a board of directors that decides on everything. We also have asked to open this board of directors for the citizen movements. And we have done that. We have succeeded. So I'm member of this board of directors, and I have been put forward by the citizen movements to be in that board of directors, because in a board of directors, usually you would have the business society, a lot of lawyers, a lot of people with power, let's say, but no people from NGOs, no environmental association people, especially not in a construction company. So that was that has a huge impact. We work in workbenches. The workbenches is the main input level. And we always have 3 groups in those workbenches: the administration, the experts, and the citizens. That's the golden triangle. You always need the 3 of them, and the backbone is the administration. There's a long-term commitment in these workbenches. We work until 2013. There's a lot of budgets by the Flemish government, also for the participation process, and we want to have innovation all the time. I also wrote a book on that, and the main thesis in that book is that I inspired myself on the idea of the octopus. The octopus, the brain of the octopus, 2/3 of the brain is in the arms. And that's a nice image to show that top-down is important, 1/3, but we also need to work with the arms. And you could have 8 arms, several places for citizens to be involved. The main thing in our thing is, so here you see the activism, the prehistory of this discussion. The main thing is that after you have been an activist, there should be a place for activism also in the governance. The government has, that's a real challenge. How do we make sure that the activist spirit is integrated in governance? And in Antwerp, we have chosen for the stakeholder in the workbench, but you could do it in different ways as well. So this is the stakeholder position, and we work together, citizens with civil servants and experts. These are all things all of you know, of course. You have to work interdisciplinary, you have to have different layers of administration. You don't work with a fixed thing, but it's not a fixed blueprint, but a roadmap that you're designing. The informal lines are very important. Of course, you need a formal structure, but you need to talk in an informal way as well. These are all things everybody knows by now, but how do you put them in practice? These are all the stakeholders involved. So you see, the superintendent has done his job to define the stakeholders. So, and Straten-Generaal and Ringlet and Ademloos are only a very small part of it. It's many more stakeholders being involved. Workbenches, you know the idea, top-down and bottom-up, system world, living world, all these things. I think Barbara, you already have said it. You need courage, moed, as you said it, creativity, leaving comfort zones. Co-creation, we have different ways of doing co-creation. There's not one formula. And I'll show you some of them to wrap it up, a couple of those. The design teams have to integrate all these manners of working together in their process. See, you have focus groups. They are very local target audiences. You have interviews, debates, plenary sessions. You have ring tables where people decide on the priorities. You have open moments, as I have shown you. We applied all these things to the ring parts. There's 8 workbenches in progress by now. This is the hectares that we're gonna reclaim by redesigning the whole ring road area. It's very experimental, but at the same time very evidence-based. That's why we need the administration and the experts. There's no improvisation. Everything is calculated. We stretch beyond the ring parks, so we make veins into the city because we want for all the people in Antwerp that the ring park starts at their front door. There's typology of veins being designed with the citizens. We are transforming the whole city, and the ring road readaptation is just the excuse to redesign the whole city. These are all things that we're making together. We also are making a bicycle path grid, a new bicycle path grid with all what we call velostrades coming from all over into the city. And there's already a very strong bicycle culture. In most of the rankings, we're number 3, 4, 5 in Antwerp, but we want to become number 1, of course. Evidence-based, the new bridge will have 22,000 passages every day with the bicycles. So workbenches are well prepared. There's no improvisation. The co-creative spirit needs a lot of expertise, a lot of input, and the citizens realize that. These are all kinds of different ways to sit together. This is, in COVID times, a mini focus group. You could only gather with 3-4 people at a time, so we still went on. The focus groups try to look for what does the local society want as to activities. This is, you go into the field, Ringpartzuig, you go to the schools to get the information. There's a lot of communication being organized in these things. Social safety, of course, is always a big issue, so we zoom in social safety, sometimes 10 sessions in a row until we know what to do. This is the spaghetti junction at one part. This is how it's going to look in the future. We work in a lot of detail, so that's the last slides I want to show you. There's a lot of detail being involved, and what we learned in Antwerp that is that citizens can cope with a lot of detail. As long as it's well explained and there's a long involvement. That's one of the things that we're very proud of in Antwerp, that participation can be applied to a high-level, multi-billion-dollar complex city project. Oh, a little bit also like in Milano, in the whole of the city. And the level of detail is huge. That's a new tram line that we're designing, and we want to make sure that everybody around is happy with this new tram level. So are we going to go to the left? Are we going to go to the right? 3 discussions about that for hours until we have discussed it in the final project. We also went digital, of course, at the end. This is the outreach group where all the stakeholders that communicate, from Lantis, from the administration, from the experts, from the design teams, from the citizen movements, a monthly gathering to talk with each other about communication. We also start to explain it abroad, and the city of Amsterdam also works with workbenches now, but they call it maakbanken. So it's a different word, always has to be a different word, but it's the same spirit. And this is last slide, I think, or second last. We're 5 years in the process now, we're still going strong. This is the next Flemish government, another minister-president, another minister. In March, we put our signatures again and we updated this covenant. And then afterwards, we have to give interviews to make sure that all the people are involved. I think that's it. Okay, thank you.